evening since you left Greenglade, you have looked at Goren's books and tried to prize out the knowledge that they hold. But now, you must admit to yourself that you can't decipher them. They are written in the learned language for high magi, and Lot Yonan didn't teach you that. However, you're sure that the books are important. Why else would Goren want them sent to Turga the Fair-Faced? You put them away with a sigh, and your eyes remain on the bag that Lot Yonan gave you. Did Goren ask Lot Yonan to return the magical artifacts in the pouch? You pick up the pouch and look at it.
Lot Yonan forbade me from opening the pouch.
The hamlet of Sungird certainly lives up to its name. You arrive as the sun sets behind the tower of a Palandial temple, lighting up its stained glass. There's a shop in the village, and through the window, as well as some everyday objects and food, you also spy a shelf full of books. A small bell rings as you enter the shop. The twins look around, but seem rather disinterested, until they discover a couple of gemstones on display. On the wall to your left is the bookshelf you saw through the window. It's quite unusual for a village shop to sell books. Just like previous nights, you are haunted by the image of the elf maiden nailed to the tree in Greenglade. You wake from your sleep and look around you. The night is unusually dark. Despite your good dwarven eyes, you can only make out Boendal's outline, even though he's keeping watch only a few steps away. You're about to lie down again, but suddenly feel something cold against your throat. Next to you, the pale face of an elf slides into view.
Good evening. I'm afraid we missed each other in Greenglade, so my companion had to receive you on her own.
You want to speak, but the blade is pressed against your larynx, and you can only manage a wheeze.
Shush! You don't need to talk. I'm not going to kill you. Not yet. Do you know what I'm going to do instead?
You feverishly search for an answer, but you can't even imagine how an Alfar thinks.
I will kill everyone who means anything to you. I will destroy your life, and you will sink into hopelessness, groundling. Your downfall is called Synthoras.
You tense your muscles, readying to defend yourself, but suddenly realize that the blade against your throat has disappeared. You look around, astonished. The elf is nowhere to be seen. You look over to Boendal, who is easy to recognize in the bright moonlight. Next to you, Boindil smacks his lips in his sleep. You touch your throat, and when you don't feel anything, you breathe out, relieved.
Just a nightmare.
At least that's what you tell yourself. But you don't close your eyes for the rest of the night. Boindil unwraps his dwarf cheese again and cooks it on the fire. When he offers you a piece, you take it.
I knew we'd make a dwarf of you in the end.
You chew on the cheese so you don't have to answer. It tastes better than you first thought. You arrive at a small, bustling village. One thing is clearly missing from the lively scene: the sound of metal on metal from the village smithy that would normally be heard above everything else at this time of day. A dour, grim-looking man is sitting in front of the forge with his right arm in a sling. His expression brightens as he sees you, and he jumps to his feet.
Dear Dwarves, could I interest you in helping me in my workshop for a day?
The man's expression is somewhere between desperation and hope. As you don't answer immediately, he continues.
You will, of course, be royally rewarded for your work. I can offer you 100 gold pieces.
What happened to your arm?
A stupid accident. A box of blanks fell down. I was trying to catch it. It will heal, fortunately, but I won't be able to wield my hammer for a while.
You must have quite a backlog of work.
You nod sympathetically. You always felt bad if you were ill or couldn't work in the forge for some reason or other.
Loads. But if what I hear about the metalworking skills of the dwarves is true, it will be easy for you to manage it in a day.
I'll help you. I worked in a forge for a while.
You modestly conceal that in this case, a while means almost a whole human lifetime. A little later, you are standing in the workshop, examining the smith's inferior tools, while he fires up the forge and prepares everything for the job as well as he can with just one good arm. You weren't able to persuade the twins to help you. As warriors, they'd rather go hunting, Boindil declared. But you think it's more probable that you'll find them drinking beer. But you don't care. You're excited about being able to smith again after such a long time. Hours later, you have forgotten everything around you. The heat of the forge, the sweat on your warm skin, the play of the flames. You're in your element and work as if in a trance. The smith left the workshop ages ago with a satisfied grin on his face.
Oi, I'm talking to you.
You look up in surprise. Everything but the beating of the hammer had ceased to exist, and you didn't notice that someone has come in.
Can you do it?
You immediately dislike the middle-aged man. He sounds you out so doggedly with his light grey eyes that it feels as though he wants to look right through you and into your deepest thoughts. The man points to 2 horses.
Those 2 in 1 hour.
With the forge hammer in your hand, you play dumb. You blink and look back and forth between the horses and the man.
What's the deal with the horses?
You expect the man to fly off the handle, but you feel even more uneasy when he asks you quietly and very slowly to please re-shoe the 2 horses.
These 2 need shoeing? No problem.
The man doesn't look convinced, but you get to work with confidence. 2 more armed men are standing next to the horses, sizing you up. You concentrate on the work. The only sound you hear is the melodic beat of the hammer against the anvil. You keep track of the armed men out of the corner of your eyes. You suspect they are mercenaries. While you're fitting the 3rd horseshoe, another armed man enters the forge and speaks in hushed tones with the leader of the group.
He's the only one here.
The man nods in your direction, and you quickly shift your attention back to the work. You play it cool and complete the work. As the leader of the mercenaries pays you, you have the feeling that he is trying to transfix you with his eyes. The men leave the workshop without a word.
So, you're mercenaries, I take it?
You're only trying to engage in conversation, but the man looks at you incredulously, as if he didn't expect dwarves to be able to talk.
Something like that.
Got lots of work? Oh, do you know anything about the armies of orcs from the south?
We can't complain.
The man's tone makes it clear that the conversation has ended here. You carry out the work in silence. As the leader of the mercenaries pays you, you have the feeling that he is trying to transfix you with his eyes. The men leave the workshop without a word. You ignore the horsemen and concentrate on your work. When you tell the twins about your visitors later on, they know exactly who you're talking about. They encountered them on the way back from hunting. You spend the night in the smith's house and continue on your way, with your well-earned reward the next morning. In the early evening, you make an unusual discovery on the side of the road. A colourful trader's wagon has been carelessly abandoned, with not a soul in sight.
I don't like the look of this one bit, Boindil. You take a look around there, I'll stay on this side. Tungdil, you check the surrounding area, and be careful.
You scan the road and the woods on both sides. Apart from the twins who are fighting their way through the undergrowth within earshot, you can't hear or see anyone. The wagon itself isn't damaged, nor is the drawbar, but the belts and leashes that normally hold the draft animals have been cut clean through. You can see a lot of tracks in the mud around the wagon, hoof prints and footprints from humans in heavy boots. At least half a dozen long ones must have approached the wagon from the woods on both sides. The dwindling daylight provides little light inside the wagon. It smells of leather, spices, and candles. And there's another smell in the air, which you can't quite place. It reminds you of your forge in Lot Yolin's vaults, but different. It is messy, but no more so than you would expect from a single dwarf. The bed is rumpled, and there are tools and leftover materials piled up on the little workbench. There are several cupboards hanging on the right-hand wall. At the end of the wagon, there's a large wardrobe, and next to the door on the left is a heavy wooden chest with rusty metal hinges. As you try to lift the lid of the chest, you realize that the lock has been broken out of the wood. You open the lid and look inside. Amongst clothes and some empty boxes, you find a loot case and a beautiful loot of the kind that humans build, as well as a bag of bread and cured meat. You reach for the knob of the wardrobe and then stop. The rug in front of the wardrobe squelches as you step on it, as if you had stepped in a puddle. You try to work out what has soaked the rug, when suddenly the door of the wardrobe springs open and something bounces into you. You take a step back, and the realization of what hit you makes you take two more. Lying on the floor in front of you is the body of a dwarf, headless. His head has been cut clean from his neck. The dwarf is wearing clothes that look more like human robes and bears no coat of arms that would identify his kingdom. You didn't know him, but no one deserves to die like this. The smaller cupboards are piled high with a multitude of tins and boxes, all filled with odds and ends that the trader offered for sale to customers on his trips. Nothing of real interest. His head is being cut off cleanly, probably with a sharp blade. A quick glance in the wardrobe confirms what you already suspect. The dwarf's head is nowhere to be seen. You give a short, sharp whistle, and the twins come running at the double. You tell them what you found.
A group of horsemen with heavy boots has been here. I found Mort in the wagon, beheaded. I have a hunch that the mercenaries from Fallow Rock have something to do with this.
Wretched dwarf killers!
You can tell that Boindil wants revenge and can understand his feelings well. You wrap the body in linen, dig a hole in the woods, and place the body in it. You lay a couple of his tools and other personal belongings you found in the wagon next to him. You wish there was more you could do for him. You continue on your journey in gloomy spirits. You come across an orchard next to a farmstead and surrounded by several fields of wheat. You don't see anyone working in the fields, but there's a young man lying under an apple tree. He has his legs crossed and a straw hat is covering his face.
Excuse me, but we're looking for a group of mercenaries. Have they passed by here?
The young man is startled. He must have nodded off. He looks around anxiously. When he sees you, the fear disappears from his face and is replaced by curiosity. It seems to you that the man is sizing you up.
And if I answer? What's in it for me?
If you can't help us, we'd be happy to ask the owner of the farmstead. We'll just tell him that the man sleeping in the shade of the orchard sent us. What do you think?
The man seems to size you up, and then a crooked smile spreads across his face.
All right, you caught me. The people rode northwest. But please don't tell Father Mullen.
There's no reason for that if you told the truth. So, northwest, you say?
You continue on your journey, while the lazy labourer sinks back into the grass. The first thing you notice as you enter the village of Clintal is how quiet it is. There is hardly a soul in the streets, and the few people you do see immediately disappear into their houses as you get closer. Boindil draws his axes, and Boendal his raven's beak.
Something's not quite right here. Be alert.
You walk on until you reach the village square. Without a word, men enter the square from the left and the right, cutting off your way. You recognize the leader of the group of mercenaries, looking you over with a satisfied expression. Standing next to him is a frail man with greying hair, who doesn't seem able to cope with the situation. He tries several times to say something, but can't find the right words. Before you have the chance to say anything, the leader of the men calls loudly so that they can all hear.
That's them. They're the ones who murdered the poor travelling trader Mort.
Murderers? Come here, dwarf killer!
Are you denying your terrible deed? You were seen murdering poor old Mort, one of your kind, in cold blood.
The old man points unnecessarily to the leader of the mercenaries.
So apparently, you saw us committing murder, but you didn't intervene? And then you overtook us and only set a trap for us now, and here, several days' journey from the place where it happened. Your story doesn't seem to make much sense.
We knew that the good people of Clinton would stand by us in confronting you. Mort was well known and respected around here.
But how did you know that we would come to Clinton of all places? If you were really tracking us, that wouldn't have been possible. But if you, on the other hand, were the ones being tracked, then it would have been easy for you to steer us into this trap.
He does have a point, Medarin. Why did you?
The village elder stops mid-sentence as the leader of the mercenaries draws his sword. The village elder turns from the mercenary to look at you, and then gives his men a signal to withdraw.
Watch out for the archers.
Yeah! And what now? What is it? Put up a fight! I didn't hit you very hard! What is it?
Huh? Vile creature!
Who's next?
And again!
right!
Yes!
On my way!
Yeah! Huh?
Yes!
Yes?
Yeah! Yeah! And what now? Who's next?
As good as done! On my way! As good as done! What is it?
Huh?
Yeah! What is it? Who's next? He hardly put up a fight!
Pow! Another one bites the dust!
The last of the mercenaries falls to the ground, but Boindil is still in the frenzy of battle. You and Boendal have to physically restrain him until he comes to his senses. Otherwise, you'd have stormed the houses to find more adversaries. You walk up to the body of the mercenaries' leader and search his pockets. You soon find something. A letter.
An anonymous client seeks dwarf skulls cleanly cut, shorn, and put into jars with honey. 1,000 gold coins will be paid for each skull. Khan, Bounty Hunters Guild Master.
That's bounty hunters. Hunting for dwarves. Despicable.
You hold the letter aloft so that everyone can see it.
Look, citizens of Clintel, proof that these men are the killers. They are bounty hunters hunting for dwarves.
The village elder comes out of one of the houses, flanked by other villagers. You ignore their weapons, as well as their sinister expressions, and hand over the letter.
It would seem you are telling the truth. And you only killed those who deceived us. I thank you for this.
The village elder signals to a woman, and a few moments later, she brings you food and a bag of gold.
Take this in thanks for your actions.